Center for the Ethiopian Educational Information and Communication Technology presents Educational Satellite Television Programs.
Hello, teacher. Hello, students. Welcome to today's lesson on rule of law and combating corruption. In our last lesson, we considered two African examples that demonstrated the difference between limited and unlimited government. We looked at South African apartheid and compared it to Nelson Mandela's negotiations for democratic government. We also discussed the Ethiopian Derg regime and compared it to the constitution of the FDRE. In this lesson, we will turn our attention to rule of law and combating corruption. Specifically, we will talk about what individuals can do to combat corruption. Students, how would you define corruption? What different forms of corruption can you identify? Can you provide an example of each? Take a few minutes to answer these questions. Please make sure you write all your ideas down, so that you can discuss them later with your teacher and the rest of the class.
Students, let's get ready. Begin. Time's up. Let's get back to our lesson.
That is the end of the activity time, students. Thank you for your participation. Let us define corruption. Corruption means to abuse or to be dishonest. Specifically, political corruption is the abuse of public power, office, or resources by government officials or employees for personal gain. There are different forms of corruption. One is extortion, which means to obtain something through force or threats. Another is offering bribes, which means to persuade someone illegally or dishonestly to act in one's favor by offering money. Another form of corruption is embezzlement, which means to steal money belonging to the organization for which one works. An example of extortion is a political leader who threatens people into voting for him. An example of bribery is a person who uses money or social status to get special treatment from a doctor. An example of embezzlement is someone who steals money donated for social aid and uses it for personal benefit. Corruption causes many social problems. It breeds fear because people do not know who to trust. It also results in public skepticism, which means that people will cease to believe what their politicians tell them. Corruption also affects the economic development of a country. If a nation is seen to be corrupt, international aid organizations will not want to invest in it. This has a harmful effect on the country's economy because many developing nations depend upon foreign investment and support. Because corruption is such a serious social and economic problem, it is every citizen's duty to combat it. In 2001, the Ethiopian government formed the Federal Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Its main objective is to create a society that is aware that corruption is not tolerated by promoting ethics. It aims to prevent corruption offenses by exposing, investigating, and prosecuting them. The Federal Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission stresses the role that citizens play in combating corruption. One of the main responsibilities of citizens is to be honest and truthful in all of their activities. Students, let's try a fun activity. Please find a partner. Now, tell your partner two things. One will be true, and the other will be a lie. See if your partner knows which statement is a lie. Discuss how you can identify if someone is not telling the truth. When you are ready, students, please begin.
Begin. Time's up! Let's get back to our lesson.
Welcome back, everyone. Did you enjoy this activity? I wonder if you and your partner were able to detect one another's false statements. We occasionally can tell if a person is not telling the truth. Some signs are a lack of eye contact and uncomfortable body language, such as shifting position or fidgeting. Sometimes, however, we are unable to detect a falsehood. Once we discover that a person has lied to us, we no longer trust that person. You can see how one lie leads to suspicion. Imagine this on a much bigger scale, involving political parties. Honesty is essential for the smooth running of society. Another important personal behavior that combats corruption is to act without favoritism. Favoritism means to show preference for one person or group of people over others. It is a problem because it leads to some people gaining benefits when they have no more right than anyone else. Favoritism in government can lead to promotions. At its worst, of course, favoritism leads to racism. Students, corruption can be a problem that affects a whole society or country. But it begins with individuals performing illegal and immoral acts. Similarly, combating corruption begins on the individual level. The more people there are in society who act honestly and without favoritism, the harder it will become for corruption to spread. Students, in this lesson, we have learned about how corruption causes social and economic problems in countries. Corruption interferes with a country's development. We have learned about the Federal Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission in Ethiopia, which stresses that individuals must become more active in combating corruption. In our next lesson, we will continue to talk about combating corruption. Until then, thank you, teacher. Thank you, students.